The starship Orion drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its sleek hull glinting faintly under the dim light of a dying star. Inside, Captain Elias Venn leaned forward in his command chair, his sharp blue eyes scanning the holographic displays that hovered before him. His crew was small but efficient, a tight-knit team of explorers tasked with mapping uncharted regions of the galaxy. They had been traveling for months, searching for signs of intelligent life, or anything remotely unusual. Today, something unusual had finally appeared. "Captain," called out First Officer Mara Kale from her station, her voice tinged with both excitement and caution. "We've detected an anomaly just ahead. It's unnatural." Elias turned to face her, his brow furrowing slightly. "Unnatural? What do you mean?" "It's giving off strange readings, like it's alive but not organic," she replied, tapping rapidly on her console. "It's emitting low-frequency pulses, almost like a heartbeat." Elias nodded, his curiosity piqued. "Bring us closer. Let's take a look." As the Orion approached the source of the anomaly, the crew gathered around the main viewport. Before them floated a massive derelict structure, ancient and otherworldly. Its surface shimmered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as if alive. The ship looked abandoned, yet there was no sign of decay or damage. It was as though time itself had forgotten this place. "This thing doesn't match any known designs," murmured engineer Zura Lin, her fingers dancing across her tablet as she analyzed the data. "Whoever built it must have been incredibly advanced." "Or still are," added navigator Theo Grayson, his tone laced with awe. Elias stood up, his decision made. "I'm going in. Suit up, everyone. We're taking a closer look." The airlock hissed open, and Elias stepped onto the alien vessel, his boots clicking softly against the metallic floor. The interior was dimly lit by glowing veins embedded in the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced with every movement. Strange symbols covered every surface, their meanings lost to time. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, Elias felt drawn deeper into the labyrinthine corridors. He reached what appeared to be a central chamber, its ceiling arching high above him like the dome of some grand cathedral. At its center floated a pulsating orb of energy, radiating soft hues of green and gold. As Elias approached, he felt a strange warmth emanating from it, almost inviting him closer. Suddenly, tendrils of light shot out from the orb, wrapping around his arms and torso. He gasped, struggling instinctively, but the grip was gentle, not hostile. The tendrils pulled him toward the orb until he was fully enveloped in its glow. For a moment, everything went white. When Elias opened his eyes again, he found himself lying on soft grass beneath a sky painted with swirling colors. Towering crystalline structures surrounded him, reflecting the kaleidoscope above. Confused and disoriented, he sat up and looked around. That's when he saw her. Standing tall and regal before him was a figure unlike anything he'd ever encountered. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her elongated limbs moved with an elegance that seemed almost ethereal. Her eyes, large and luminous, locked onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "I am Queen Lizura," she said, her voice resonating like a chorus of bells. "You are far from your home, human." Elias blinked, trying to process the situation. Where am I?" "You are on Jiren Prime, my world," she replied, stepping closer. "And you have been chosen." "Chosen?" he echoed, frowning. "For what?" Lizura paused, her expression unreadable. Then, with a mixture of pride and wonder, she spoke words that would change his life forever. "You got me pregnant, human." For a long moment, Elias simply stared at her, his mind reeling. Pregnant? How could that even be possible? But before he could ask, Lizura extended a hand toward him, her gaze unwavering. "There is much to explain," she said softly. "Come, walk with me." Reluctantly, Elias took her hand, feeling the cool smoothness of her skin against his own. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. Nothing about this mission, or his life, would ever be the same again. Elias followed Queen Lizareth through the crystalline forest, his mind racing with questions. The shimmering trees towered above them, their translucent leaves humming softly in the breeze. Despite the beauty surrounding him, Elias couldn't shake the surreal feeling of walking beside an alien queen who had just claimed he had somehow fathered her child. "Wait," Elias finally said, stopping in his tracks. "I need answers. What do you mean by what you said back there? How is this even possible?" Lizareth turned to face him, her luminous eyes reflecting a mix of patience and amusement. "Your species is not so different from ours, human. While our forms may vary greatly, life itself often finds ways to adapt and connect." She gestured toward a nearby crystal formation that pulsed faintly with light. The Jiren are capable of interspecies reproduction under rare conditions, specifically during celestial alignments when the energy fields of our planet align perfectly with those of another. When you entered the chamber aboard the derelict vessel, your genetic material resonated uniquely with mine. It triggered a biological process we thought lost to time. Elias frowned, struggling to comprehend. "But humans and aliens, we're completely different. We don't share anything close to compatible biology." Lizareth nodded, her expression thoughtful. "True, but compatibility does not always mean similarity. Your DNA carries patterns that harmonize with ours, a trait unseen in other beings we've encountered. This makes you special, Elias. You are part of something greater than yourself." Her words left Elias speechless. He glanced down at his hands, half expecting to see some visible proof of what she was saying. Instead, all he saw were his calloused palms, still marked from years of gripping starship controls. Could it really be true? Was he somehow responsible for creating new life on this alien world? Before he could dwell further on the implications, Lizareth continued, "This union between us is sacred among my people. It signifies hope, not only for the survival of the Jiren, but also for unity across the stars. Our child will embody both our worlds, bridging gaps we never thought possible." Elias swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. Hopeful as they sounded, he couldn't ignore the enormity of the situation. He wasn't prepared for fatherhood, let alone raising a being who would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And what about Earth? His crew? Would they understand? Or would they see him as a traitor for aligning himself with an alien race? Meanwhile, aboard the Orion, tensions were mounting. First Officer Mara Kale paced the bridge, her sharp features etched with frustration. "We can't just sit here waiting for Captain Venn to return," she snapped, glaring at Navigator Theo Grayson. "Who knows what's happened to him out there?" Theo sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mara, we've scanned the area multiple times. There's no sign of him, or any threats. Whatever's going on, it's beyond our technology to detect. That's exactly why we should go after him." Mara shot back. "If something's wrong, we owe it to him, and to Earth, to bring him home." Engineer Zara Lynn, seated quietly at her station, interjected calmly, "And risk contaminating whatever environment he's entered. We have protocols for situations like this, Mara. Rushing in blind could make things worse." Mara clenched her fists but said nothing. She knew Zora was right, but every second that passed without word from Elias gnawed at her resolve. As First Officer, she was responsible for ensuring the safety of the crew, and that included their captain. Yet breaking protocol could jeopardize everything they'd worked for. Just then, a sudden alert blared across the ship's systems. The crew froze, turning toward the main display. A fleet of unknown vessels had appeared on the edge of their sensors, moving steadily closer. "Hostile ships?" Theo asked, his voice tight with alarm. Zora quickly analyzed the data. "Unknown origin, but their weapon systems are active. They're heading straight for us." Mara's jaw tightened. "Prepare defensive measures. If they attack, we'll hold our ground. But if they're looking for Elias, we might already be too late." Back on Jiren Prime, Elias remained unaware of the danger brewing in orbit. For now, his focus was entirely on Lizura and the revelations she shared. As they walked together, she explained more about her people, their history, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. The Jiren were once a thriving civilization, deeply connected to the natural rhythms of their planet. But over centuries, their numbers dwindled due to environmental shifts and internal strife. Now, they clung to existence, relying on ancient traditions and rituals to preserve their way of life. "This child," Lizura said softly, placing a hand over her abdomen, "is more than just a miracle. It represents renewal. For me, for my people, and perhaps for others throughout the cosmos." Elias felt a pang of guilt as he realized how much rested on his shoulders. He wanted to believe in the hope Lizura spoke of, but doubts lingered. What kind of parent could he be to such a unique being? Would he even recognize his own reflection in its eyes? As night fell over the alien landscape, the sky erupted into dazzling displays of color. Streams of light danced across the heavens, painting the world below in radiant hues. Elias gazed upward, momentarily forgetting his worries. In that fleeting moment, surrounded by beauty and mystery, he allowed himself to imagine a future where humanity and the Jiren stood side by side. Days turned into weeks as Elias settled into life on Jiren Prime, learning more about the planet and its people. Each sunrise painted the crystalline forests in hues of gold and violet, while the hum of energy flowing through the land seemed to echo a constant rhythm, a heartbeat shared by all who called this world home. Slowly but surely, Elias began to feel less like an outsider and more like someone who belonged. Queen Lizura proved to be both a patient teacher and a compassionate guide. She introduced him to the intricacies of Jiren culture, showing him how their lives were deeply intertwined with the natural environment. The shimmering trees that surrounded them weren't just beautiful. They were alive, capable of communication through vibrations carried by the wind. The glowing rivers weren't merely water. They were conduits of energy, sustaining everything from the smallest insect to the tallest spire. One evening, as they sat together beneath a canopy of stars, Lizura handed Elias a small, smooth stone. It pulsed faintly with light, mirroring the colors of the auroras above. "This is a fragment of our planet's essence," she explained. "Hold it close. Feel its pulse. It will help you understand us better." Elias hesitated before taking the stone, his fingers brushing against its cool surface. At first, nothing happened. But then, a warmth spread through his palm, followed by a strange sensation, as if whispers filled his mind. He saw flashes of images, vast oceans teeming with bioluminescent creatures, towering cities built from living crystal, and celebrations where beings danced under skies ablaze with light. These weren't random visions. They were memories. Lizura's memories. This is incredible," Elias murmured, his voice trembling with awe. "Is this how your people share knowledge?" Lizura nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, our connection to each other and to our world runs deeper than words or actions. We are one with Jiren Prime, just as you humans are one with Earth, even if you've forgotten it." Her words struck a chord within Elias. He thought back to his own planet, so often scared by war and greed. How different would humanity's story be if they embraced their connection to nature instead of exploiting it? For the first time, he truly understood why the Jiren revered their home, and why they needed hope now more than ever. As days passed, Elias found himself growing closer not only to Lizura, but also to the broader community of Jiren. They welcomed him warmly, eager to learn about his species and share their own traditions. One day, he joined a group of artisans crafting intricate sculptures from glowing minerals. Another time, he participated in a harvest ceremony, gathering fruits that grew from vines suspended midair. Through these experiences, Elias discovered that the Jiren valued balance above all else, between individuals, between species, and between themselves and their environment. Yet, amid these moments of harmony, questions about the future weighed heavily on his mind. What kind of being would his child become? Would it inherit traits from both species, or something entirely new? And what responsibilities did he have toward its upbringing? Lizera noticed his unease during one of their walks. "You seem troubled," she said gently. "Tell me what's on your mind." Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I keep thinking about the baby, about what it means, for you, for me, for everyone. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Hell, I don't even know if I'm capable." Lizera stopped walking and placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was light yet grounding, reminding him of the stone she'd given him earlier. "No one is ever truly ready for parenthood, Elias. Not among my people, and certainly not among yours. But readiness isn't the point. What matters is the willingness to try, to give love, guidance, and support. That is enough." Her words brought a measure of comfort, though doubts still lingered. Still, Elias resolved to do his best. If this child was indeed a bridge between worlds, then he owed it to both species to step up. Meanwhile, aboard the Orion, tensions continued to escalate. The unknown fleet had established a perimeter around the system, blocking any attempts by the crew to investigate further. First Officer Mara Kale paced the bridge, frustration etched across her face. "We can't stay here forever," she muttered. "If those ships belong to some hostile faction, we're sitting ducks." Engineer Zara Lynn leaned over her console, analyzing the data streaming in. "Their movements suggest reconnaissance rather than outright hostility. Whoever they are, they're waiting for something, or someone." Navigator Theo Grayson frowned. "You think they're after Captain Venn?" "It's possible," Zara replied. "If Elias stumbled onto something valuable or dangerous, they might see him as a threat." Mara clenched her fists, torn between duty and desperation. "Then we need to find him before they do. Prep a shuttle. I'll go down myself." Before anyone could respond, the ship's sensors picked up another anomaly. A transmission, faint but clear, came through. It wasn't in any human language, but the tone was unmistakable. "Warning. They know we're here," Theo said grimly. Back on Jiren Prime, Elias remained oblivious to the brewing storm beyond the atmosphere. With Lizera's guidance, he continued to immerse himself in her world, finding solace in its beauty and wisdom. Together, they climbed to the summit of a towering hill overlooking the glowing plains. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, bathing the land in shades of amber and rose, Elias felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time since arriving, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of a brighter future, not just for himself and Lizera, but for all beings across the stars. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he vowed to face them alongside the Jiren. After all, unity had always been humanity's greatest strength, and perhaps, now more than ever, it was the key to survival. But as night fell and the auroras lit up the sky once more, Elias couldn't shake the nagging feeling that their fragile peace wouldn't last forever. Somewhere out there, forces were gathering, forces that might not share his vision of hope. The tranquility of Jiren Prime was shattered one morning when a low rumble echoed across the crystalline plains. At first, Elias thought it might be another natural phenomenon, perhaps an aftershock from the planet's shifting energy fields. But as the vibrations grew stronger and more persistent, he realized something far worse was unfolding. Queen Lizera appeared at his side moments later, her usually serene expression replaced by one of urgency. "Elias," she said sharply, "we must act quickly. The invaders you warned us about, they've arrived." Elias felt his stomach drop. Invaders. He had mentioned Earth's history of colonization and exploitation during their conversations, but he hadn't expected his warnings to manifest so soon or so violently. "How do you know?" he asked, already fearing the answer. "Our scouts detected ships entering our atmosphere," Lizera replied, gesturing for him to follow her. "They are not here to explore or negotiate. Their weapon systems are active, and they're targeting key locations across the planet." As they hurried toward the heart of the settlement, Elias noticed the Jiren preparing for what seemed like an inevitable confrontation. Glowing crystals embedded in the ground pulsed faster than usual, creating barriers of light around vulnerable areas. Artisans who had been crafting intricate sculptures now worked feverishly to assemble defensive tools powered by the planet's energy. Though the Jiren were peaceful by nature, Elias could see determination etched on every face. They weren't going to surrender without a fight. When they reached the central chamber, a vast dome filled with shimmering holographic displays, Lizura turned to Elias, her eyes blazing with resolve. There is ancient technology hidden beneath this structure that can protect us, but activating it requires your genetic signature, the same resonance that brought you here in the first place. Elias blinked, taken aback. Me? Why me? Because your DNA is uniquely attuned to our systems, Lizura explained. It's why you were chosen. Without you, we cannot defend ourselves. For a moment, Elias hesitated. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him once again. If he failed, not only would the Jiren suffer, but his unborn child, and potentially countless others, would be put at risk. Yet, how could he possibly make such a decision alone? Before he could respond, a loud explosion reverberated through the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Alarms blared throughout the chamber as holograms flickered wildly, displaying images of descending enemy vessels. Lizura grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a platform at the center of the room. "There's no time to waste," she urged. "Trust me, Elias. Together, we can save our people." Meanwhile, aboard the Orion, First Officer Mara Kale stood frozen in shock as the situation unfolded before her. The unknown fleet had launched an attack on Jiren Prime, bombarding the surface with devastating precision. Her crew scrambled to intercept communications, desperate to understand the motives behind the assault. "They're broadcasting a message," Engineer Zara Lynn announced, her voice trembling slightly. "It's Commander Rhea Solon." Mara's blood ran cold. She knew that name all too well. Rhea Solon was infamous within Earth's military ranks, a ruthless leader known for her xenophobic views and willingness to use extreme measures to secure resources. If she was behind this attack, then nothing short of total domination would satisfy her. Navigator Theo Grayson leaned closer to the display, his brow furrowed. What does she want with Jiren Prime? She doesn't care about diplomacy, Mara spat bitterly. She sees anything alien as a threat, or a resource to exploit. And if Captain Ven is down there, her voice trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the air. If Solon discovered Elias among the Jiren, she wouldn't hesitate to label him a traitor, or worse. "We need to warn him," Zara insisted. "If he activates whatever defense system the Jiren have, maybe we can hold them off long enough for reinforcements to arrive." Mara nodded grimly. "Prep a shuttle. I'm going down there." Back on the planet, Elias found himself standing on the activation platform alongside Lizura. The device before them resembled a massive crystal orb, its surface etched with glowing runes that shifted and changed as though alive. Lizura placed her hands on either side of the orb and motioned for Elias to do the same. "This will link you to the planet's core," she explained. "Your resonance will awaken its defenses, but be warned, it will require great focus and strength." Elias took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could hear distant explosions growing louder, signaling the invaders' advance. Closing his eyes, he placed his palms against the cool surface of the orb. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through him, filling his mind with vivid images of the planet's history, its creation, its struggles, and its hopes for the future. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. "You're doing it," Lizura exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. "Keep going." But just as the barrier began to form around the settlement, a new wave of attacks struck nearby. The force of the impact sent tremors rippling through the chamber, causing cracks to spread across the walls. Dust rained down as the holograms flickered and died, plunging the room into near darkness. Elias gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain focus despite the chaos surrounding him. His connection to the orb wavered, threatening to break entirely. Sensing his struggle, Lizira stepped closer, placing her hand over his. Her touch steadied him, grounding him even as the world seemed to crumble around them. Together, they poured their strength into the activation process. Slowly but surely, the barrier expanded outward, enveloping the entire settlement in a shimmering shield of light. Outside, the invaders' weapons sputtered harmlessly against the impenetrable field. For now, they were safe, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. As the dust settled and the immediate danger subsided, Elias turned to Lizira. Exhaustion etched across his face. "We held them off," he said quietly. "But for how long?" Lizira met his gaze, her expression resolute. "Long enough to rally support. Word of this miracle will spread across the galaxy. Allies will come, not just for us, but for the hope your presence represents." Elias nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. Hope was a powerful weapon, but it wouldn't stop someone like Commander Solon. As he looked out at the glowing shield protecting their fragile haven, he couldn't help but wonder whether unity would truly triumph over fear, or if the shadows of conflict would engulf them all. The days following the activation of the planetary shield were tense and exhausting for everyone on Jiren Prime. While the barrier held firm against Commander Solon's relentless attacks, it was clear that the invaders weren't ready to give up. Their ships circled the planet like vultures, probing for weaknesses in the shimmering dome of light. Every hour brought new attempts to breach the defenses: bombardments, energy pulses, even drones designed to destabilize the shield's core. Elias spent most of his time at Lizira's side, helping coordinate efforts to reinforce the ancient technology. Though he had played a crucial role in activating the shield, maintaining it required constant vigilance. The strain showed on his face. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled from fatigue. Yet, despite the physical toll, Elias refused to step back. He knew too much was at stake, not just for the Jiren, but for the future his unborn child represented. Lizira noticed his exhaustion during one of their brief moments of respite. "You need rest," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than anyone could have asked of you." "I can't stop now," Elias replied firmly, though his voice betrayed his weariness. "Not when so many are counting on us." Lizira hesitated, then nodded. She understood his determination. It mirrored her own resolve to protect her people. But there was another concern weighing heavily on her mind, one she hadn't yet shared with him. "Elias," she began cautiously, "there's something else we must prepare for. The stress of this conflict is affecting me. And the baby." Elias froze, his heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean? Is everything okay?" "The pregnancy is progressing faster than expected," Lizira explained, her tone calm but tinged with urgency. "It seems the heightened energy surrounding us has accelerated the process. The birth will happen soon, possibly within days." Elias felt a wave of panic wash over him. A part of him had been dreading this moment, unsure if he was ready to face the reality of becoming a father under such extraordinary circumstances. But now, with war raging above them and uncertainty clouding their future, the idea of bringing a new life into the world seemed almost overwhelming. "We'll get through this together," Lizira reassured him, sensing his unease. "Our child is strong, just like its parents, and no matter what happens next, its arrival will be a beacon of hope for all of us." Meanwhile, aboard the Orion, First Officer Mara Kale continued her desperate attempts to reach Elias. After narrowly escaping an ambush by Solon's forces, she managed to land her shuttle near the outskirts of the settlement. Smoke filled the air as she sprinted toward the central chamber, dodging debris from recent explosions. When she finally burst inside, she found Elias and Lizira huddled over holographic displays, strategizing their next move. Relief washed over her face as she spotted her captain alive and relatively unharmed. "Captain," she called out, rushing to his side. "Are you okay?" Elias turned, startled by her sudden appearance. "Mara, what are you doing here? It's not safe." "I couldn't leave you behind," Mara replied, her voice laced with both frustration and concern. "Solon's forces are closing in. We need to evacuate before they break through the shield." Before Elias could respond, Lizera stepped forward. "That may not be possible. My condition has changed. The birth is imminent." Mara's eyes widened in shock. "Condition? What are you talking about?" "She's pregnant," Elias admitted, his cheeks flushing slightly. "And I'm the father." For a moment, Mara simply stared at him, dumbfounded. Then, shaking her head, she muttered, "Of course. Why wouldn't it be complicated?" Despite the gravity of the situation, a flicker of amusement passed between them, a rare moment of levity amidst the chaos. But the levity was short-lived. Outside, the sound of another explosion rattled the walls, reminding them all of the danger lurking just beyond the shield. As night fell, the first signs of labor began. Lizera guided Elias to a secluded chamber deep within the settlement, where glowing crystals formed natural cradles and soft hums filled the air. The atmosphere was serene, offering a stark contrast to the turmoil outside. Still, Elias couldn't shake the feeling of dread gnawing at him. "You're doing fine," Lizera whispered, gripping his hand tightly as waves of pain coursed through her body. "Focus on the rhythm of the planet. Let it guide you." Elias did his best to follow her instructions, drawing strength from the pulsating lights around them. Hours passed in a blur of intensity and exhaustion, until, finally, a soft cry broke the silence. The room lit up with radiant energy as a tiny figure emerged, wrapped in a cocoon of shimmering light. Elias gazed down at the infant in awe. Its skin glowed faintly, reminiscent of Lizera's silvery hue, but its features bore hints of humanity: rounded cheeks, a small nose, and wide, curious eyes that seemed to sparkle with starlight. As it squirmed gently in its mother's arms, Elias felt tears welling up in his own eyes. "It's beautiful," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Perfect." Lizera smiled weakly, her expression filled with pride and relief. "This is our hope, Elias, our bridge between worlds." Word of the birth spread quickly among the Jiren, lifting spirits across the settlement. Even amidst the ongoing siege, the arrival of the child served as a reminder of resilience and unity. Glowing messages of celebration rippled through the crystalline network, carrying news far beyond the planet's borders. But while joy blossomed within the shield, Commander Solon grew increasingly desperate. Her fleet launched another assault, determined to claim the mysterious power source fueling the Jiren's defenses. Explosions rocked the surface once again, threatening to shatter the fragile peace inside. Elias stood guard at the entrance of the birthing chamber, clutching a makeshift weapon crafted from glowing crystal. He wasn't going to let anything, or anyone, harm his family. Not now. Not ever. As dawn broke over Jiren Prime, casting golden light across the glowing plains, Elias realized the true meaning of responsibility. This child wasn't just a symbol of hope, it was a call to action. Together, they would fight for a brighter future, one where humanity and aliens could stand side by side, united by love and purpose. But as the distant rumble of enemy ships grew louder, Elias knew the battle was far from over. The days following the birth of Lizera and Elias's child were a blur of tension and hope. The infant, who they named Aler, a name meaning starlight in the Jiren language, became a symbol of resilience for the settlement. His presence brought an undeniable sense of purpose to the Jiren people, who saw him as proof that unity between species was not only possible but destined. Yet, outside the shimmering shield protecting their world, Commander Solon's forces grew increasingly aggressive. Solon herself stood aboard her flagship, staring at the glowing dome below with barely concealed frustration. Her attempts to breach it had failed repeatedly, and her patience was wearing thin. To her, this defiance was unacceptable, not just because it challenged her authority, but because it represented everything she despised about alien life forms. unpredictability, resistance, and worst of all, cooperation. We need results. She snapped at her second-in-command, a wiry officer named Captain Drex. If brute force won't work, find another way. I don't care what you have to do. Drex hesitated before replying. Commander, our intel suggests the shield is powered by some kind of ancient technology tied directly to the planet's core. Without access to the surface, we can't disable it. Then take the surface, Solon barked, slamming her fist on the console. I didn't come here to be stopped by a bunch of glowing rocks and sentimental nonsense. If these aliens won't surrender willingly, we'll make them regret resisting. Back on Jiren Prime, Elias worked tirelessly alongside Lizira and her advisors to fortify their defenses. Though the shield held strong, cracks were beginning to form, both literal and metaphorical. Supplies were dwindling, and exhaustion plagued even the most resilient Jiren. Worst of all, whispers of doubt began to spread among the population. Some feared the invaders would never leave, while others questioned whether aligning themselves with a human could truly bring salvation. Elias overheard fragments of these conversations during his rounds through the settlement. He tried to ignore them, focusing instead on practical tasks like reinforcing energy barriers or repairing damaged structures. But deep down, the doubts gnawed at him too. Was he doing enough? Could humanity, a species so often defined by conflict and division, truly stand as a beacon of unity? One evening, as he walked along the glowing riverbanks with Alir cradled gently in his arms, Lizira joined him. She moved slowly, still recovering from childbirth, but her presence radiated strength and calm. "You're carrying too much guilt," she said softly, glancing at him sideways. "It's written all over your face." Elias sighed, adjusting his grip on the infant. "How can I not feel guilty? This whole situation started because of me. If I hadn't stepped into that chamber, none of this would have happened." Lizira placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. "And if you hadn't stepped into that chamber, we wouldn't have Alir or the chance to unite two worlds. Don't mistake responsibility for blame, Elias. What matters now is how we move forward." Her words struck a chord within him. For weeks, he'd been consumed by self-doubt, wondering if he deserved to play such a pivotal role in shaping the future. But Lizira was right. Dwelling on the past wouldn't change anything. What mattered was ensuring that Alir's arrival heralded a new era of peace rather than destruction. As dawn broke the next morning, Elias addressed the gathered Jiren in the central chamber. Standing beside Lizira, with Alir resting peacefully in her arms, he spoke with a clarity and conviction that surprised even himself. "I know many of you are scared," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of his emotions. "I am too. But fear doesn't define us. It challenges us. We have something extraordinary here, a bond between humans and Jiren, forged not out of convenience but necessity. Together, we can show the galaxy that coexistence isn't just possible, it's essential." The crowd listened intently, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to resolve. When Elias finished speaking, a wave of murmurs rippled through the chamber, followed by nods of agreement. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a renewed sense of purpose among the Jiren. But inspiration alone wouldn't stop Solon's fleet. That required action and sacrifice. Later that day, Elias approached Marakail, who had remained on the planet to assist with defense efforts. "We need reinforcements," he told her bluntly. "Your ship has faster-than-light communication capabilities. Send a message to Earth and every allied species you can reach. Tell them what's happening here and why it matters." Mara hesitated, her brow furrowed. "Even if they believe us, help might not arrive in time. Solon's forces are closing in." "It's a risk worth taking," Elias replied firmly. "Hope doesn't wait for guarantees. Sometimes it starts with a single step." With no other options left, Mara agreed. Using the Orion systems, she transmitted a plea for aid across multiple frequencies, detailing the plight of Jiren Prime and emphasizing the significance of Alir's birth. Though she couldn't predict how, or if, the message would be received, she trusted Elias's instincts. Meanwhile, Commander Solon launched one final desperate assault. Realizing that conventional weapons weren't enough, she deployed experimental devices designed to destabilize planetary cores. As the devices descended toward the shield, the ground beneath the settlement trembled violently. Elias sprinted to the activation platform, where Lizira waited anxiously. "We need to reinforce the shield," he shouted over the chaos. Now, together, they channeled their combined energy into the crystal orb once again. This time, however, the strain was almost unbearable. The runes etched into the orb flared brightly, threatening to overload. Sweat dripped down Elias's face as he pushed beyond his limits, drawing strength from the memory of Aelur's tiny, glowing form. Just when it seemed the shield might collapse entirely, a sudden burst of light erupted from the horizon. Dozens of ships, some human, others alien, emerged from hyperspace, forming a protective perimeter around Jiren Prime. Among them flew vessels belonging to benevolent races eager to support the Jiren cause. Solon stared in disbelief as the newcomers opened fire on her fleet, forcing her to retreat. Defeated and humiliated, she ordered her ships to withdraw, vowing revenge under her breath. As the dust settled, and the invaders vanished into the void, Elias sank to his knees, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. Around him, the Jiren cheered, their voices echoing through the crystalline spires. For the first time in what felt like forever, hope truly seemed within reach. The aftermath of the battle left Jiren Prime bathed in an eerie stillness, broken only by the soft hum of energy coursing through the land. The glowing shield that had protected the settlement flickered faintly before stabilizing once more, its light dimmer but steady, a testament to the resilience of both the planet and its people. For Elias, standing amidst the crystalline ruins with Aelur cradled in his arms, the moment felt surreal. They had survived against overwhelming odds, not just as individuals but as a united front. Queen Lizira approached him, her silvery skin shimmering faintly under the twin suns. Her expression was one of quiet pride, though exhaustion lingered in her luminous eyes. "We did it," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in unity." Elias nodded, his gaze drifting toward the horizon, where the Allied fleet remained stationed, their ships glinting like distant stars. "I didn't think they'd come," he admitted, his voice tinged with awe. "When Mara sent that message, I wasn't sure anyone would listen." "They came because of you," Lizira replied gently. "Because of what you represent, a bridge between worlds. Your willingness to fight for us, even when it seemed hopeless, inspired others to do the same." Her words filled Elias with a mixture of gratitude and humility. He had never imagined himself as a symbol of hope, let alone a catalyst for interstellar cooperation. Yet here he was, standing at the crossroads of two species, and perhaps many more. In the days that followed, the alliance between humanity and the Jiren flourished. Representatives from various alien races arrived on the planet, eager to learn about the miraculous child born of such an unlikely union. Aelur became a focal point for discussions about coexistence, his very existence serving as proof that differences could be celebrated rather than feared. Elias took an active role in these exchanges, sharing stories of Earth's struggles and triumphs, while learning about the histories and cultures of other civilizations. Through this process, he began to see humanity in a new light, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as explorers capable of growth and change. It was a perspective he hoped to carry back to Earth someday. For now, however, his priority was raising Aelur alongside Lizira. As weeks turned into months, the infant grew rapidly, exhibiting abilities that fascinated everyone who encountered him. His skin continued to glow faintly, casting warm light in darkened rooms, while his laughter seemed to resonate with the planet itself, causing nearby crystals to pulse in harmony. Though neither fully human nor entirely Jiren, Aelur embodied the best of both worlds, a living reminder of what could be achieved when barriers were broken down. Lizera watched her son with a mixture of wonder and determination. He will grow up knowing peace, she vowed one evening as they sat together beneath the auroras, but also understanding the importance of protecting it. Elias smiled, reaching out to touch Aylar's tiny hand. Peace isn't something we can take for granted, not after everything we've been through. But if anyone can inspire others to work toward it, it's him. Meanwhile, aboard the Orion, First Officer Mara Kale prepared to return to Earth with news of the events on Jiren Prime. Before departing, she sought out Elias for a final conversation. "You've changed, Captain," she said, her tone softer than usual. "When we first met, you were just another explorer chasing the unknown. Now, well, look at you. You're building bridges across galaxies." Elias chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I wouldn't say I'm building anything. Just trying to keep up with everything happening around me." Mara shook her head, smiling faintly. "Don't sell yourself short. What you've done here, it's historic. When I report back, I'll make sure Earth knows exactly how much you've contributed." Though part of him longed to return to his old life, Elias knew his journey was far from over. "Thank you, Mara," he said sincerely, "for everything. And tell them there's still hope for us out there, if we're willing to reach for it." As Mara boarded the shuttle and departed, Elias turned his attention back to the planet he now called home. With Lizera by his side, and Aylar growing stronger each day, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about creating a legacy, a future where all beings could thrive together. Months later, word of Jiren Prime spread throughout the galaxy, drawing attention from benevolent races eager to support the cause. Trade agreements were established, scientific collaborations initiated, and cultural exchanges celebrated. Slowly but surely, the seeds of unity took root, nurtured by the hope sparked by one extraordinary child. One evening, as Elias stood atop a hill overlooking the glowing plains, he reflected on how far they had come. From a lone explorer lost among the stars to a father ushering in a new era of possibility, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Yet, despite the challenges they had faced, and those yet to come, he believed in the potential for lasting change. Beside him, Lizera held Aylar close, her gaze fixed on the swirling colors above. "Do you think we've made a difference?" she asked quietly. Elias glanced at her, then at the sleeping infant in her arms. "We've already started," he replied. "And as long as we keep working together, there's no limit to what we can achieve." Under the watchful eyes of countless constellations, Elias Venn embraced his role as a guardian of hope, not just for his family, but for all who dared to dream of a better tomorrow.